In this video, I put my Sony FX6 on a gimbal and see what kind of test shots I can get. Here's the story. Here's an image of the setup we've got today. We've got the Sony FX6 using the Zeiss Batis 18mm F2.8, and we're on the FeiyuTech 4500 gimbal, and I'm monitoring with the Portkeys LH5 monitor. And I've also got the Sony monitor attached on top of the FX6 just to be a bit of a counterweight, because without the monitor, the setup was too back heavy. So having the monitor on the camera helped balance it out. All up with the camera and the lens and the monitor, it weighed 1.7 kilos or 3.7 pounds. And for this gimbal, it has a max payload of 4.6 kilos or 10 pounds. It was a gloomy day, but I wanted to take the opportunity to use the Sony FX6 on the FeiyuTech AK4500 gimbal. I have the Zeiss 18mm F2.8 lens as well on the FX6, and I'm shooting everything at an f5.6 in 4K 25p, XAVC, S-Gamut, Cine S-Log3, and color correcting with Cinematch. I'm using a 180 degree shutter, and the variable ND is on and set to auto. And this footage is all raw without any stabilization. So now we're seeing a shot just with the AK4500, no stabilization added, and I'm not really impressed with it straight out of the camera. It's a little jittery and a bit shaky, and doesn't look very professional. So now I've added warp stabilizer, and this cleans things up a lot, but then as we start to get to here and around the corner, that's completely unusable. So just adding warp stabilizer onto the footage isn't a solution, but I do have one more trick up my sleeve, and that is using Sony's Catalyst Browse. And if you don't know, this is software that takes the gyro information from the FX6 and then stabilizes all the footage in post. So it is a little bit time consuming, but as you can see, the results are pretty good. There is a little bit of bobbing still, and that could be a little bit to do with the way that I'm walking. But overall, I think the Catalyst Browse looks really good. And now we've got both warp stabilizer and Catalyst Browse side by side, so you can see what they look like. And for me, Catalyst Browse is the clear winner. One thing to note, I did just use the warp stabilizer stock settings, so I didn't make any changes. This is just exactly how it is when you drag and drop the effect onto the clip. And for those thinking, what does Catalyst Browse look like with warp stabilizer? Well, this is what it looks like, and it's not really a solution. So it's really one or the other, and if I was to pick between warp stabilizer and Catalyst Browse, I'm picking Catalyst Browse every day of the week. And then if you want to do some sort of hyperlapse, this is what it looks like. It did go up to the sky at one point. That was me just playing around with the tilt on the gimbal just to see if the camera would freak out. And now I'm doing a walk around the park, and I've added a Tiffin Black Pro Mist Filter 1.8 as well, just to get rid of that digital sharpness that we can see a lot in video. So if the image looks a little bit different, that is why. And this is with no stabilization, just using the FeiyuTech AK4500 gimbal. And as you can see, it's not fantastic. I did weigh the gimbal as well, and it was about 4.8 kilos, including the camera. So it's not the lightest setup, and that's something to consider as well when you're operating. And here's the footage with Catalyst Browse. And as you can see, it looks a lot smoother and usable. So overall, you can balance the FX6 on the FeiyuTech AK4500 gimbal, and I think I did a pretty good job of balancing it, but the results of it didn't really impress me. Having the Catalyst Browse software is really helpful and something that I really value. So in the future, if I'm wanting to use the Sony FX6 with the FeiyuTech AK4500 gimbal, I'm going to have to be using Catalyst Browse. The problem with Catalyst Browse though is it does take a lot of rendering time to stabilize the clips. So for a 1 minute 43 clip, it took me 23 minutes and 30 seconds to render. So that is something to consider in your workflow. If you've got fast turnarounds and you need stable shots ASAP, Catalyst Browse might not be the solution for you. Getting a different gimbal that is able to hold this payload and get some nice smooth shots, that could be the solution for you. And here's some more shots with the AK4500, but no stabilization. So you can see there is a lot of jitter, and it's not very smooth and not the most pleasing results. So Catalyst Browse is really handy to have, but it is a bit of a time killer. And now we're back in the studio, and at the beginning I was recording with my Panasonic S1, but now I've switched the camera out to the Sony FX6, and we are recording with the Sony 28mm F2. So for those wondering at home, this is what it looks like. And we're recording wide open at F2. And now I'm going to put my Pro Mist filter on. And this is now what it looks like with the Tiffin Black Pro Mist 1/8 filter. But now back to the gimbal footage. Overall, I wasn't really impressed with the AK4500 gimbal, but I do have access to a DJI RS2 gimbal. So hopefully in the next few weeks, I'll be able to test out the Sony FX6 on that, and we'll see if I can get some better, smoother shots straight out of the camera and not needing to use Catalyst Browse. And with that said, that will do it for this video. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, please give it a like. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to this channel for more videos on video creation and the Sony FX6 in the future.